If you spend enough time in the right places, reading the right books, listening to the right stories, you begin to notice something. A thread, thin as silk, but unbreakable. A pattern that defies logic and refuses to be ignored. It's the pattern of those who were never meant to do what they did, but did it anyway. Benjamin Franklin, for instance, the runaway apprentice who helped shape a nation. William Blake, dismissed as mad, who saw visions in ink and stone. Nikola Tesla, seen as nothing more than a mad scientist by many, but really helped shape the future. And then you've got John Taylor, the water poet. The man who should have been forgotten, but wasn't. These figures are more than historical footnotes. They're enigmas, not just brilliant, but inexplicably brilliant. Not just eccentric, but radical, chaotically, unapologetically themselves. And therein lies the mystery. Why do people like this exist? How do they emerge, seemingly out of nowhere, defying expectations, rules, and sometimes even common sense? More importantly, what do they know that the rest of us don't? John Taylor was not born to be a poet, nor a traveller, nor a provocateur. He was a man of the river, a waterman, a common tradesman, and yet, through sheer force of will, through relentless self-belief, and something almost mystical, he became something else entirely. A celebrity before mass media, a traveller without money, a poet without formal education, a performer without a stage. Like the anonymous multitudes before and after him, he shouldn't have worked. He should have faded into obscurity, another forgotten name swallowed by the past. And yet, he didn't. His life was a contradiction. His station in life was to ferry passengers across the Thames, but refused to be bound by the oar. He set his sights beyond the riverbanks, reaching for a place among gentlemen and kings, defying the limits of his social standing and frowned upon occupation with the force of his ambition. He called himself the King's water poet, because unlike highbrow poets of his time like Ben Jonson, Shakespeare and Marlowe, he wrote in a rough, straightforward style that was accessible to ordinary people. And he knew that even in the 17th century, charisma and a good story could get you far, literally. Some have even woven John Taylor into the ever-growing web of Shakespearean conspiracies, suggesting, rather absurdly, that he was the true author behind the bard's work. I'm steering well clear of that particular folly. There are already enough shadows and speculations surrounding Shakespeare without adding another unlikely spectre to the mix. He was prolific too, with over 150 publications. Topics were wide and varied, from the virtues of hemp seed, are oysters best eaten alive, would the world be improved if all hats were banned, to madcap travel adventures, like a prototype Hunter S. Thompson in one of his bestsellers, The Penniless Pilgrimage, where he walked from London to Edinburgh with no money, and the additional caveat of no begging or borrowing, and is packed with humorous and absurd adventures like being arrested as a spy in Berwick, being taken under the wings of James I's entourage and being treated like royalty in Scotland because of it, contrasted with the worst lodging he ever had.
It has oft been said that a man of letters should know his place in the world. Mine, it seems, was in a barn, wedged between a pile of hay and several fat, snoring pigs. Oh, what luxury! My hosts, generous in spirit yet miserly in comfort, assured me that this was the finest lodging they could offer. The pigs, for their part, were unbothered by my presence and made for fine bedfellows, save for their excessive snorting and rather impolite habits. I've slept in grand halls and beneath open stars, but never have I lain down beside such esteemed company as these swine. And truly, I tell thee, pigs make for quieter company than drunkards, and they steal fewer covers than scoundrels.
Further adding to the aura of this gonzo pioneer was his drinking habits. At the great eccentric club, not an official club with a charter or rules, it was more of a loose, rowdy gathering of misfits, poets, playwrights and performers who loved good ale and even better banter. It met in London taverns. The Swan was a favourite haunt. It was basically a 17th century salon of the strange. Members took pride in arguing about pointless or ridiculous topics with absolute seriousness, much like modern internet debates. Think Monty Python's argument clinic, but with tankards of beer, because the meetings were as much about drinking as about anything else.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to have an argument, please. Is this the right one for an argument?
I've told you once.
No, you haven't.
Yes, I have.
When?
Just now.
No, you didn't.
Yes, I did.
Didn't?
I did.
Didn't?
I'm telling you I did.
You did not.
Oh, I'm sorry, is this a 5-minute argument or the full half hour?
He even mooched a shilling off Ben Jonson himself to buy a beer. As well as debating the absurd, they held daft competitions that made little sense, like a challenge to see who could insult the king most creatively without committing treason. Now remember, this was the age of Guy Fawkes, of conspiracies and swift, brutal justice, where the wrong word in the wrong company could see a man clapped in irons or worse. What seems like a bawdy bit of fun was in truth a dangerous game. In 1617, Taylor undertook another bizarre journey, this time in a boat without oars. Instead of rowing, he relied entirely on the tides to carry him from London to Queensborough. He called it a fool's errand, but he pulled it off. Another example of his mix of showmanship, poetry and absurd endurance challenges. 2 years later, he did another water escapade. Of all of his madcap adventures, few were more as ridiculous or as strangely poetic as his attempt to sail the Thames in a boat made entirely of brown paper. This was not some fleeting fancy, nor was it a drunken boast taken too far, no. This was a carefully considered act of audacious folly, a performance designed to capture the public's imagination. But why? Was it a wager? A publicity stunt? Or just the inevitable next step in a life that seemed determined to test the limits of the possible? Picture it, a boat, delicate as a love letter, constructed from sheets of brown paper, glued, greased and gummed like an old alehouse debt. To keep her afloat, he lashed 2 bull bladders to her sides. She bobbed like a cork, and for 40 miraculous miles he was the captain of the most ridiculous vessel ever to disgrace His Majesty's waters.
From yonder cloud mine eye looks down below, where mortals still my paper venture know. Time team, bold seekers of the buried past, hath raised my voyage, let it sail at last. O rare delight, to see once more that tide, whereon I dared in paper boat to ride. Though dust am I, my name doth yet remain, a jesting spirit on the waves again.
This stunt was actually for a cause, tied to his opposition of the rise of hackney carriages in London. He saw the increased popularity of these carriages as a direct threat to his livelihood. Watermen relied on ferrying passengers across the Thames, but as more people opted for carriages on land, their trade suffered. And so it drew attention to the struggles of watermen and cemented his place as London's most inventive self-promoter. Taylor should have been forgotten. He wasn't Shakespeare. He wasn't Milton. He never wrote great epics or immortal verses, and he certainly never secured a place among the literary elite. And yet, here we are, still talking about him, because the thing is, he understood something most of us never get to figure out. Life is only boring if you let it be. He lived with the reckless joy of a man who knew that the world was far stranger, funnier, and more surprising than it pretends to be. He turned hardship into spectacle, drudgery into adventure, and failure into legend. He knew that a life well lived wasn't about perfection or prestige. It was about audacity, about stepping into the unknown, embracing absurdity, about telling a story so outrageous that people couldn't help but remember it. Most people live and stay within the lines that are drawn for them. Taylor tore up the map. He wandered where he pleased, wrote what he wanted, and made sure that no day was ever quite like the last. He wasn't the greatest poet or the sharpest wit, but he did what so few of us dare to do. He made life an adventure, and if that's not something worth drinking to, then I don't know what is. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, it really helps out the channel. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next. And please, share the heckings out of this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Ta-ra.